Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Content Creators Unite, the show where we discuss all things content creation. So if you want to learn how to grow your business using your blog, using a newsletter, ebooks, and more, well, you are in the right place. So I'm your host, John Clements, and with me today is someone you're going to learn a lot from. I'm excited for you to meet her. So her name is Angela Frank. She's a fractional CMO with a decade-long track record of generating multi-million-dollar marketing revenue for clients. She's also the founder of the Growth Directive, which is a marketing consultancy helping brands create sustainable marketing programs. And that's not all. She's got a new book, Your Marketing Ecosystem, How Brands Can Market Less and Sell More. And it helps business owners, founders, and corporate leaders create straightforward and profitable marketing strategies. And if that's not enough, she also hosts the Growth Pod podcast, which I have been on and is amazing, by the way, where she shares actionable tips to help you build a profitable brand you love. So Angela, welcome to the podcast.
John, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be your first guest, and I'm very excited for our chat.
Me too. So I was looking at your media kit and your bio, and I see this a lot. I see, fractional CMO like on LinkedIn. And can you just share a little bit about like what that is, what it means, and how you got into that role?
Yeah, so fractional CMO, it's kind of a trendy term right now, which is why I use it a lot because somebody who's looking for this type of support is searching that in Google and on LinkedIn. But what that means is it's part-time strategy support for your brand. And so for small businesses, it's so critical that you have marketing strategy, but you probably don't need someone in that strategy role full-time, and your dollars are better spent elsewhere. So that's where someone like me or another fractional CMO can come in, partner with you on your strategy, make sure that what you're doing is actually going to help you grow and help you avoid costly mistakes along the way.
Nice. So it's like kind of like outsourcing that function of your business, but I don't
Definitely.
I don't need someone 40 hours a week. I just need some help. And so we would reach out to you for that.
Yep,
Got it.
100%.
So then with that, what is it that's really exciting about what you do? Like if everyone could know, what's the best thing about hiring a fractional CMO, like what would your answer be?
Well, you get to enjoy the growth that you would have having somebody in a full-time chief marketing officer role, but you get to save a lot of money. And so that means you have money to spend in other areas of your marketing or in your business. So you get to grow super fast because you have the strategy, but you also have a little bit of budget free to do the things that you've been meaning to do. And I think that's really the power of bringing in someone to support your strategy on a fractional basis.
Yeah, I really love that how you phrased that because you mentioned that you're going to grow and you're actually going to save money. So a lot of times, right, we say, oh, well, it's going to cost me this much to hire this person. I'll just do it myself. But then you're not thinking about, but I'm hiring someone for their expertise and I'm getting that time back to do the things that I know how to do well. So I'm so glad you put it that way because there's just so many reasons to reach out and get help from someone. And it's so much more than just, oh, I got to pay another person to do something. Like that's not how you should look at it. So that's amazing.
100%. I actually love that you bring that up because some of our packages cost less than bringing on a paid intern. And so when you're bringing on someone to support your marketing who's maybe fresh out of school or they're just learning marketing really for the first time, and so you're saving a lot of money bringing them onto your team, you are losing out essentially on all of the knowledge of someone. And so, like you said, John, bringing on someone who will actually save you money in the long run is key. And somebody who knows how to maximize maybe these more cost-effective hires that you've made as a business. I think that obviously you're trying to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and bringing on the most skillful person that you can afford at the time. But having somebody who can come in and provide just a little bit of guidance can really make your hire go a lot further.
Yeah, totally. So it's like it's like buying, it's like paying for quality, basically. Like me personally, I'm willing to pay more for quality, like all the time, 100% of the time. So I know that you do content creation. I know that you have a podcast because I've been on it. I know that you have a newsletter because I've signed up for it. So can you actually walk us through like what does your content creation flow look like? Like how do you decide what to do, when to publish, all of that stuff?
For me, I like to keep things as simple as possible. Our team is quite small. It's me and my husband and a few contract employees. And so we really try to lean into the channels that perform well for us and we try to do a mix of social media platforms and content production as well, just to make sure that we're continuing to build out our ecosystem. So we always start there. What channels are we going to promote on? For us, it's really primarily LinkedIn. I'm also ramping up on Threads. And then we are continuing to build out our ecosystem on a less intense basis on Instagram and YouTube and things like that. In addition to social content, we create newsletter content, and we're right now working to launch a new blog initiative. So it's a lot of content, and there's a lot of moving parts along with that, especially for quite a small team. And so we rely heavily on our planning and our tools. So our planning, we do all of our content planning out of ClickUp. I recommend doing content planning in a project management software. It doesn't have to be ClickUp, but it makes things really easy and helps you bring all these moving parts of content production together. For example, if you're doing a short form video, you have to film it, you have to script it, you have to come up with the caption, you have to film it, you have to edit it, you have to make sure that you're using maybe an Instagram feature so it gets a little bit more reach, and then you have to post it, and then you have to engage with anyone who comments. So there's a lot that goes into just one post. And so by using a project management software like ClickUp, it makes it a lot easier. The other thing that I use is a scheduling tool like Rella. Rella is a new one that's really affordable. I think it's like, I don't know, I think we pay $30 a month to use Rella for 2 seats. It might be $15 per person, which is way more affordable than like Later or Plannable or some of the other bigger social media scheduling tools. And Rella is pretty new, so they're shipping a lot of new features. So I just saw today that they shipped a new feature that's an integration with Canva. So if you're making any carousels or any type of post in Canva, you can automatically bring it into Rella and get it scheduled with your caption. It just really takes a routine thing that you have to do for all of your content, which is like making sure that it's ready to post and posting it, and completely automates it, which is something that really maximizes our efficiency as a small team.
Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, having that automation, having those tools, like I use Trello instead of ClickUp. It's the same, it's the
Yep.
same thing, just a different program. And also, just so our listeners might not know, if you happen to have a subscription to Adobe, like my wife is a graphic design artist, so we have the Creative Suite that actually comes with a social media scheduler called Adobe Express. I didn't even know it until I clicked on the button, like, hey, what's this do? So there are definitely a ton of them out there that you can utilize. I did have a couple of follow-up questions. So when I get your email newsletter every week or two, however often you send them, the one thing that struck me is that it's designed very simply. It's kind of just like a header and some text, and it's done professionally, but it's not like a work of art necessarily. It's just like a professional, simple theme. So as a marketing, chief marketing officer, what made you decide to go simple instead of maybe more complex with more images or links or things?
Yeah, so one of the things for our email strategy is we are a service-based business. So I don't spend a lot of time trying to like illustrate this in photos. Instead, what I try to do is provide some tip that you can implement in your business. If it's our Monday newsletter, it's usually a growth tip. And then occasionally on Fridays, I'll do a podcast roundup where I will say, this is the guest that we had on. Here's the link to their episode and what they talk about. And here's my episode and what I talk about in the link. So it's meant to be just very no nonsense, straightforward. Here's what you're getting. Here it is. And at the bottom, I do have a graphic to promote on our Monday newsletters, the Growth Pod, and then a few links for next steps people can take if they want to take that next step with us. But if I'm designing an email strategy for a product-based business, it would be a lot more graphical and image heavy and include more of that visual element. And something that we will be experimenting next year is implementing more like embed videos, but I try to keep the emails really light, really quick and action packed, information packed, so you can have exactly what I was trying to get across in the email and go ahead and implement it in your business or immediately get that takeaway without wasting your time.
Nice. So I like how you broke that up too into you've got a service-based company and maybe a product-based company, and how those might need different marketing avenues for each of them. So I hadn't even thought about that, but that's a wonderful point. So like for me, I'm a writer and an editor, so you might guess a lot of my stuff is text-based as well because that's what I focus on. But I am lucky because I do have a graphic designer who sits right next to me at all times.
I have to pay mine, so we
Yeah.
try to keep our graphics limited.
So, and you also mentioned that you've really tried to streamline your process. So you've got, your small team and you try to automate everything. Do you still face certain challenges with content creation? And if so, could you give us an example of what one of those might look like and what you might do to overcome that?
Yeah, definitely. So I always try to be on top of my content and try to plan ahead. But right now, if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see that I've posted very sparsely over the last few weeks. And that's because life happened. I went on a week-long trip in September, which ate through my backlog of content. And ever since I've gotten back, I've been in back-to-back meetings. And so I haven't had the time to set aside for that content creation piece. And that's something that we're trying to get ahead of, making sure that when we're creating content, instead of posting 3 times a week, like I did to burn through all my content, I should have done 1 or 2 and made it more sustainable. And that's just part of owning a business. And as an entrepreneur, I think it's really easy to be like, oh no, I'll have infinite amount of energy and it'll be fine when I get back from my trip. But life happens. And so what's important for me is making sure that I just take it in stride. I take it as a learning opportunity. I was just on a podcast earlier, and we were talking about, when business owners do something and they feel like it may be a failure, instead of feeling bad about it, turn it into a learning. And by learning from that situation, why did this happen? It turns into a positive. And so that's what we've done with the content, and we're kind of shifting our strategy from there. But I guess the too long didn't read the TLDR on that is like, life happens, and just give yourself some grace and work through and learn, why things happened and try to be better next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the only way I know how to learn to do and get better as a person, as a business owner, is to just do stuff. And when it fails, go, okay, well, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? And like you said, don't beat yourself up, but just learn from it and do better next time. There's really no other way I know of to do it than that.
Yeah.
The other piece that I wanted to just highlight with what you just said is because I go on podcasts as well and I talk with people and sometimes people will say, well, what's the optimum? Like, how often should you post on social media? And I don't know what your answer is, but my answer is I don't have a number for you. Post in however often you can and have it be sustainable. That's like, to me, that's the right answer. It's not post 5 times or 10 times or whatever. It's if once a month is what you can do, then just commit to once a month. If it's once a day, then once a day. So to me, being consistent, having that sustainable effort over the long term is way more important than hitting some arbitrary number. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I definitely agree. I think consistency is the most important thing in a social media strategy. And for a platform that gives you immediate analytics like LinkedIn, for example, I know, like, when I'm posting consistently, I can see my profile views go up, and when I'm not posting consistently, it goes down. And so you can see right there from that pretty immediate feedback, consistency is what's important. And of course, the more you post, the more eyeballs you're getting on your content, and therefore maybe your profile and your offer. But if you are posting so much and then burning yourself out, like for me, I haven't posted a couple weeks on on LinkedIn right now. I can see that like my views are going down on my profile. And what would have been better is just spacing my posts out. So then I wouldn't have to come out of this dip that I'm in, right? I would have been able to keep that positive momentum. And so, consistency, I guess, is important. I was going to
Yeah.
say there was somebody who I chatted with on my podcast, and he likes to say, sometimes the shoemaker's kids don't have any shoes. And so it's like really easy for me to make a consistent posting strategy for a client, but sometimes I need to take my own medicine as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. So actually, that kind of segues into the next question I had, which is, so you talked about like I got on LinkedIn and I noticed that my views were maybe sagging just a bit because I hadn't posted. And so that's a metric you can follow. But how do you actually gauge success for your content? Whether it's a LinkedIn post or a newsletter or a new podcast, like what does success mean to you?
I think it's really easy to always focus on what are the dollars that this post is bringing in. But for something like social media or even like blogging or an email newsletter, there's a greater value than just I posted and this person purchased. And so therefore, this post was worth X dollars. The value there is the engagements and the community building that you are able to do through your content. And so for me, I'm looking for engagements as a strong metric. Of course, I'm also tracking if people are viewing my profile, if people are clicking through on the link and that to make sure that everything after the engagement is as optimized as possible. But that's sort of icing on the cake. What I want to do is provide as much valuable content to people as possible and build that trusting relationship. And for me, I measure that through engagements, people who are commenting, people who are liking and sharing the content. And then also for like email, once in a while, I'll say hit reply and let me know. So that would be a way for somebody to engage. So there's kind of different ways you can track it. But for me, that is always my goal with content, is just to build that value for people.
Yeah, I love that as well. That's what I try to do with how successful I am. I guess I don't, it's a continual journey, but I'm like you. Like I think if you go with like, let me provide the value first. Let me give away some value for free. And then I think it's a lot easier to go, have those people go down to the next step. Plus, like who doesn't, want to learn and be edified by something? I would much rather read a post on LinkedIn that's like positive and teaches me something than like I don't like some people get on there and complain, which is fine, but I don't think that's great for my brand to do that. So I'd much rather, take that approach.
I agree. I saw someone on LinkedIn who I used to work with quite closely just blasting somebody for using an incorrect statistic, saying that they were like 100% cheaper than the alternative. And they were basically like, do they not know math? That'd be like, no, you'd be paying them money to use your platform. And I'm just like, that's not the best look. Instead, maybe share the valuable takeaway of how they could have optimized the landing page and provide a valuable learning moment. I think a lot of times people are scared if they provide value, then why would anyone pay them for your services? But the truth of the matter is, people value their time. And so, like John, even if you are giving away some of the meat and potatoes of your process for, editing, blog post creation, whatever, even if they're using it in the interim to grow their business, there's going to be a point where they're like, I don't love to write blogs. And you want to know actually who I do admire and who taught me how to write blogs? It was John. And so I think there is only value in building that relationship and providing value.
I agree. There's so many people that as my business grows, I would love to reach out to and say, I don't want to do this anymore. You do it.
Yeah.
I'll probably still all write my own blog posts because I like to do that, like you said. But
Right.
yeah, and like to your point, valuing your time. Oftentimes when I go on a podcast and someone says, what's the tip of the day or whatever, like that's the one I usually go to, is like value your time, know what your effective hourly rate is. And if you're doing tasks that fall well below that, then outsource it. Like, why are you not still doing that? So
Yeah.
totally agree. Um, I was curious too. So we talked a little bit about success. In all of our conversations so far, we actually haven't mentioned that I know of anything that really relates to SEO. And so I'm wondering, do you focus in your marketing efforts any on SEO, or do you prefer to take more of that organic kind of reach, or do you like to blend it, or does it depend?
It depends. For us personally, SEO will play a more increasingly important role in our marketing strategy. But for Other brands, it really depends. Maybe they have a very strong social following, and so they get a lot of their organic traffic that way. And while that's great, I still do encourage them to have at least some SEO effort. At the end of the day, my role is to look at somebody's marketing strategy and improve it. And sometimes that means, hey, like you don't have a blog or it's outdated or you have kind of mismatched information on there. And so let's clean up that strategy. I think it could be performing much better for you. And other times it means, hey, you are spending a lot of money on your Google ads and they're really not doing much for you. And because this is where the bulk of your budget is going, let's focus here and we'll worry more about SEO and other strategies later. And so if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, I'm really not sure if SEO is right for me, my advice to you would be look at your data and see, are you playing in all of the major areas, be it social, paid, and organic search, making sure that you're having email marketing and your website set up. Those 5 channels are kind of key. And then among those, once you have all 5 established, which ones are performing best for you? Should you be leaning more into SEO and blog? Should you be leaning more into organic social? So it really depends.
Yeah, I mean, I like that answer. Because it's just so true. Like, I'm not your business, you're not my business. And yeah, I think it does totally depend. And I think SEO works for some people and some strategies, and maybe it doesn't work for you, and that's okay. There's still other ways to go about things. And this, I might be biased, but I actually think that regardless of SEO, it's still a good idea, for example, to have a blog, because even if no one ever visits your blog from Google, you can still use that to create social media posts, to create, YouTube shorts and reels. Like, there's all kinds of things you can do with it that don't involve quote unquote SEO. So yeah, I like that there's like this, 5-fingered approach to like marketing. It's not just one thing or the other.
Yeah, and I actually love that you bring that up because as soon as I ended my thing, I was like, shoot, I should have mentioned that blogging is still really important and kind of the difference between using your blog as a way to get organic search traffic versus using your blog to lead with value and nurture that relationship. I think that one of the important things that we're seeing in marketing right now is the integration of AI into search results. And so with that, when you search something, Google's trying to give you all the information you need without leaving the search engine results page. And I think that's only going to be more and more prevalent. And we're still going to have to wait and see how that will affect organic search, but it will. And so when you are creating a high value blog and you're bringing people from other channels there and they're like, wow, this is incredibly information rich and amazing, and you're using that to build upon the value, I think that's a lot more of the direction that we're going to see blogging go in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And yeah, I mean, AI is a whole other conversation, but I do kind of wonder, especially with Google, if they want to keep you on their page and use, the AI generated overviews, what does that do if I'm buying space on Google? Maybe I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm really curious how that's going to impact their bottom line, and if they even thought, I'm sure they thought through it. I don't understand the reasoning, but it'll be interesting for sure what happens.
100%. I think that exactly like you said, how is this going to impact paid advertisers? Will you maybe eventually have to pay to show up in those snippets because it's so dominant at the top of the search results? Or will they still show uh, ads that are lower quality user experience than just getting all of the information in the snippet? I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll have to wait and see on all of that stuff. So let's pivot a little bit, because I want to get to know you as a person a little bit better. So when you're not working, if you're ever not working, which if you're like me and own your own business, that's kind of maybe not a given, but what do you like to do when you're not, marketing?
Yeah, I've definitely, since the beginning of summer, tried to take a step back and provide some more space in my life. So with that, I've been gardening a lot. Now that it's fall, I'm kind of wondering what I'm going to do to keep myself busy in my off time. Because if I don't keep myself busy, I will go right back to work. So
Right.
I'm maybe going to pick up a new language or something this fall just to kind of like I'm naturally hungry for information, so I think that might be nice. Otherwise, I don't know. I'll have to find a new hobby for winter.
Yeah, well, you live in Colorado, so shoveling snow is a great hobby to pick up in the wintertime.
Yes, true. Although our neighbor kids, last year, they'd come to our house really early and offer to shovel, and I was never up because I like to sleep in late. So we do have those. We have the kids to lean on if we need.
Nice. Yeah, I've got a teenager who's hungry for money, so I'm sure he'll be more than happy to do that for me this winter.
There you go.
So, also, one thing I like to ask everyone who comes on the show is, what is one piece of wisdom or just a life lesson that you've learned? So this could be work related, it could be not work related, something that you could share with our audience. So just about, here's this nugget that I can leave you with.
Yeah, my whole thing is doing more with less. And I think that it's really easy for entrepreneurs to become just overwhelmed with everything that there is to do in your business. And so, if you're feeling that with your marketing, it's okay to take a deep breath, look at what you're currently doing, and pick one or two things to really lean into, make it work for your brand, take it as far as it's going to go, and then branch out from there. So you don't have to be on every social media platform all the time. You don't have to be, standing up a new email sequence, redoing your landing pages as just a small team. Like the bigger companies do this, they have a full team. And so just lean into what's working. And actually, when you do this, you'll probably end up spending less on your marketing and getting more sales as a result. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, I actually love that advice because I'm right in the same boat. So like I could have a better sales funnel, right? There are holes in my sales funnel, and I know there are, but I also know I can't plug all the holes today, right now, in the next 30 minutes. But what I can do is I can write an email, or I can, host a podcast, or I can do, I can do a thing. I can always do one thing, but I can't do all the things right now. So I
Yeah.
love that advice. It's just like, just take the next step. It's okay. You don't have to have this all figured out. No one does.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, Angela, where can people learn more about you?
Well, if you enjoyed this conversation, there's more conversations just like this. And in fact, one with John at growthpod.fm. Links to all your favorite podcast players are there. Um, I guess I didn't say that that is my podcast, The Growth Pod.
Cool. So again, thanks so much for being on the show today, Angela. I will make sure and put links to all of your stuff in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And if you enjoyed our discussion today, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes with amazing guests. And with that, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Content Creators Unite podcast.